Hello and welcome to today's video.
Now I have actually been quite busy looking after two young grandchildren 2 days a week as well as my normal job, and unfortunately I've been quite sick. Nothing serious, just a constant run of coughs and colds and feeling exhausted. So the polytunnel has not been cleared out from last summer's growing season. We still have dead tomato plants hanging and dead everything else. Nothing's been getting watered, and I really haven't been putting anything in here to grow over the winter. There's a couple cabbages that seem to be doing okay without any attention. So lots of clearing to be done.
So there's a little bit of pathetic looking broccoli over there I can see. Another purple cabbage that's looking very nice actually. And a few very small bits of broccoli. I think I'll have those broccoli florets. Just going to snap them off and eat them now. And that looks like it should have been a Brussels sprout. And not much broccoli. I'm just going to eat it raw now. And take a closer look at this purple cabbage. It looks amazing. This is definitely some chard. Going nuts. Fallen over. Putting up little side shoots along its stem. And what I thought were little cabbages actually turned out to be rather stunted Brussels sprouts. So what I thought were quite nice looking little cabbages actually turn out to be Brussels sprouts. But for the total neglect for the past couple of months, the plants themselves are looking quite healthy, even if they are quite small. Star of the show has to be the curry plant. Another neglected drying out tray of strawberry plants. And I found a pot of nerines I didn't know I had. So that was exciting. Get them in some water now they've started to grow. So on a tabletop in the polytunnel, I did plant several varieties of perennial seeds about 4 to 6 weeks ago now. I knew they needed the cold stratification it's called, so they would know when the warm weather came it's definitely spring. I'm very pleased and surprised to see today that things are actually starting to germinate. Little rash of green seedlings. Lots of green mossiness on the top, because these have been here for about 6 weeks and I've been keeping them nice and damp. So here I've got a geranium. I can't be certain yet because this is just its seed leaves. I don't know if I was expecting anything quite that large, but it's shop bought compost and vermiculite on top, so there shouldn't be anything peculiar popping up in these pots. I've got a few different varieties of sedums. There's some showing here. Oh, and back here. And a couple of different Veronicas at the end. So these 2 rows of Veronica, Veronica grandis and Veronica longifolia, both got a nice little group of seeds in. We've actually had a pretty brutal winter here this year.
Well, brutal for the southwest.
No snow, but some heavy cold frosts that have lasted for a couple of weeks at a time, and I was concerned about this palm tree looking thing.
It was once a potted houseplant that outgrew the space.
When it was smaller I used to tie all its fronds together to give it some winter protection, but it's just too tall now. It's looking good. Definitely see some bright green in the centre, so I think it's survived. In fact, I'm sure it has, so I'm very pleased about that.
Well, in late autumn, just before the winter kicked in, I could not resist the temptation to buy some extra spring bulbs. Now long term, the plan for these bulbs is to go into the new area of flowery garden I'm creating in a patch of old grassy meadowland. But that wasn't ready for spring bulb planting yet. I'd like to put some perennials in there first and then plant the bulbs around the perennials. But as I couldn't resist the temptation to get some, I planted them all in this raised garden bed so they can grow here, fatten up and reproduce, and where my new flowering beds are ready for them, I can transplant them into there. So this bed is packed with all sorts of different bulbs. The daffodils are already up, and I'm not sure what these little fat bulbs are. I can't remember what anything is. I just grabbed lots of lovely spring and early summer bulbs and crammed them into this bed. There's a little patch of crocuses in the corner I can see, and I obviously ran out of space because in one of my other garden beds I can see a little corner packed full of bulbs. I've no idea what they are until they start flowering. Nothing's got a label on it. I just know it's in this bed. So here's the crocuses, looking a bit weak and pathetic really, but it's still nice to see them flowering. And something's been digging in here as well, even though I've got netting up. Here's a nice fat bud. I don't know what that is. Something exciting, I hope. Oh, Mr. Pheasant, I wasn't expecting to see you. You weren't expecting me either, were you? Where's me? What are you doing in there, you fool? That's better. Come on out. Can I scan in? No. Where's he going? Oh, gone. Well, these were looking quite good. They're certainly crammed in here. Again, I don't know what they are, but something's been eating them and having a scratch about. I suspect possibly rabbit, but I'm not sure. It could be one of the pigeons or crows. Obviously going to have to get some netting onto them. There we go. Far from perfect, but it's at least a start. Give those poor things a bit of protection from whatever's been munching on them. Some tiny little daffodils.
My favourite little purple
Hand in
primroses.
scale.
It's not often
They're
you
so
see them in
cute.
purple. They're generally yellow. But this purple cluster is naturalising very nicely in this hedgerow and spreading itself, which is great. So quite a treasure, and I'm
Splash
always
of
delighted
prettiness
to
in all
see
this
it every
cold.
spring.
A patch of snowdrops in under the trees. It's not ideal. It's a bit too shady for them here, really. But this time of year I tend to come in and dig up a few clumps and move them to a sunnier patch of the garden. Now is the time to be moving snowdrops, and they've got their green leaves. They don't like being shifted when they're dried out bulbs.
Last week I was using 3-inch pots and an underbed storage box to plant my pea seeds. So a week on, we've got lots of germination. Now these are actually in an unheated room of the house, but they are indoors and not outside. Peas don't mind a little bit of cold, and I don't want to give them extra additional heat and get them growing too fast. What they really need at this point is lots of daylight. So I have them sat on a little tabletop right in front of a window. So when I filmed my pea sowing video, I also took a few clips of a few houseplants that didn't really fit on that video. So I'm going to slot them in here.
It's orchid flowering time of year for me. These dendrobiums are looking splendid. alongside this speckledy Phalaenopsis orchid, which still has lots more buds still to come. Wonderful.
Another exciting thing I do have in the house, besides this big fluffy pussycat who's in the way, are these two amaryllis. Now, I did have them planted in the ground of the polytunnel throughout last summer, and surprisingly enough, they managed to overwinter in there quite well. Yes, all the leaves at that point died off and were just lying on the ground, flopped over and frost damaged and not looking very good at all. And I did suspect I might have lost the bulbs. So I dug them up about 3 weeks ago now in the hopes of saving them, and it looks like I did, because they shot up loads of lovely new leaves. And literally yesterday I noticed in the sides here on both of the bulbs we've got a big fat shoot coming through, which I'm pretty confident is actually a flower bud. So here on this one, this new shoot coming up here is fatter and fleshier than the leaves are. So this is a flower bud coming, and we have a daughter bulb growing at the side here. So this will eventually separate off from the main bulb. We'll have two big fat bulbs. And on the other pot, it's doing exactly the same. And on the same side, interestingly enough. But this one here is actually a flower bud developing.
Amongst my polytunnel planted perennial seeds were bear's breeches. I've brought 3 of the seeds to start in the house. I'd really like to grow this plant, so to spread out my chances of success, I've planted some in the polytunnel and some at home.
And one of them at least has managed to germinate. So I do at least have one plant. That's if I can keep it alive. I'm confident I can now it's germinated. I'd like to see the other 2 seeds popping up and showing themselves, but nothing yet. After just an extra week of growing, here's how that bear's breeches is looking now. It's got a lovely leaf on this one, and the second seed is starting to poke above the compost. Now, I have actually had a rummage about in this pot and found seed number 3, but sadly it had turned to mush, so I fished it out and put it in the compost. Now, I do have some bear's breeches seeds planted amongst my perennial pots in the compost, in the polytunnel. I'm very tempted to go out and get them and bring them in the house. And hopefully they've not turned to mush, and with the extra bit of warmth might burst into leaf. But at the very least, I have 2, so that's a great start. Now, I'm sure you can see behind me the amaryllis that we were looking at for you just a minute ago, but actually a week ago for me. And they are indeed flower buds, and they've grown loads in just a week. Really, really fast. But having said that, all this foliage popped up in a 3-week time period from rescuing the bulbs inside the polytunnel and bringing them into the house. And just off to the side here, I have another orchid bursting into flower. Another Phalaenopsis with its beautiful purple flowers. So that's it for today. Bye for now, and I'll see you next time. Remember, whatever you're doing, have fun doing it.
If you've enjoyed today's video, click that like button and let me know. Click subscribe and YouTube will make sure you see my next video. Bye for now, and thanks for watching. And remember, whatever you're doing, have fun doing it.